In 1999, Hong Kong was a city running at maximum speed. Beneath the glow of neon lights, millions of people were working, commuting, and simply trying to survive. It was a kind of densely populated metropolis where someone living on the margins could disappear without anyone immediately noticing. One of those people was a 23-year-old woman named Fan Man-yee. Abandoned at a young age, she had turned to sex work out of necessity. By 1999, however, she was trying to leave that life behind, working as a nightclub hostess and attempting to build a more stable future. When she disappeared in March of that year, no one raised the alarm. Without a strong support system looking out for her, days turned into weeks without anyone reporting her missing. It took nearly a month, and the guilt-ridden confession of a teenage girl, for authorities to discover what had happened. Police were led to a small apartment hidden within an ordinary residential building in Tsim Sha Tsui. What investigators uncovered inside revealed a level of cruelty that shocked Hong Kong. Yet the trial that followed produced a legal outcome that stunned the public. Investigators recovered extensive physical evidence showing that Fan had been held captive inside the apartment. For nearly a month, she endured prolonged physical abuse, psychological torture, and unimaginable suffering at the hands of her captors. 3 adult men were arrested and brought before the High Court of Hong Kong to stand trial for kidnapping and murder. The jury listened to the horrifying details of Fan's captivity, torture, and eventual death. Then they returned a verdict that few expected. The 3 men were acquitted of murder. The decision left the public asking a difficult question. How could overwhelming evidence of prolonged torture and a brutal killing fail to meet the legal definition of murder? The ordeal had begun over a relatively small financial dispute. Fan reportedly owed money to one of her former clients, and what started as an argument escalated into a violent kidnapping. Once inside the apartment, she was stripped of her dignity and treated as less than human. Day after day, her captors subjected her to relentless physical violence and psychological degradation until, by the middle of April, she was dead. Realizing the gravity of their crimes, the perpetrators attempted to destroy the evidence. They dismembered her body in an effort to erase every trace of what had happened. Some of her remains were concealed inside a large Hello Kitty mermaid doll. When the media reported this disturbing detail, international headlines quickly labeled the case the Hello Kitty murder, a nickname that would ultimately overshadow the victim herself. While public attention focused on the doll, investigators faced a much more serious problem. Because the perpetrators had deliberately damaged and concealed the remains, forensic experts struggled to determine the precise medical cause of death. In criminal law, securing a murder conviction requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That standard demands extraordinary precision. Prosecutors could not simply demonstrate that Fan had suffered horrific abuse. They also needed to establish exactly how she died. With only partial remains available for examination, medical science could not provide a definitive answer. Did she die from a fatal beating? Did she succumb to starvation? Or was it the cumulative effects of prolonged torture? Without a scientifically confirmed cause of death, those questions remained unanswered. In court, uncertainty in forensic evidence becomes legal uncertainty. The defense argued that because no specific cause of death could be proven, reasonable doubt existed regarding the exact act that caused Fan's death. Ironically, by destroying so much of the physical evidence, the perpetrators had eliminated some of the very proof prosecutors needed to secure murder convictions. The court, however, still had other legal options. Although the jury could not convict the men of murder, they found them guilty of manslaughter and unlawful imprisonment. Recognizing the exceptional cruelty of their actions, the judge imposed a maximum available punishment, sentencing them to life imprisonment. Those convictions were made possible largely because of the testimony of a teenage accomplice, who received immunity in exchange for revealing what had happened inside the apartment. The trial also exposed an important weakness within the legal process. The more completely a victim's remains are destroyed, the more difficult it becomes for prosecutors to establish the medical certainty often required for a murder conviction. Beyond the courtroom, Fan Man-yee's story serves as a reminder of how easily vulnerable people can become invisible. Living without a reliable support network, her disappearance failed to trigger immediate concern. In a city of millions, she simply vanished without anyone realizing something was terribly wrong. For decades, public fascination focused on the Hello Kitty doll, allowing sensational detail to overshadow the real human tragedy. At the center of the case was Fan Man-yee, a young woman with hopes for a better future, Someone working to rebuild her life despite enormous hardships. Her captors took away her freedom, her dignity, and ultimately her life behind closed doors. The media frenzy that followed nearly erased her identity once again, reducing her story to a shocking headline rather than remembering the person she truly was. Fan Man-yee's case remains a lasting reminder of the devastating consequences of violence, exploitation, and society's failure to protect its most vulnerable members.